morning, everybody. This is the first episode of Everything Yesterday this morning. And I'm really excited to bring this morning show to you. It's going to be a little bit less political and more just kind of here's some things that I found interesting that we should probably take note of. So you'll forgive me if it's a little rocky because this is my first one, but I want to go ahead and get started. I'm going to try to keep it under about 10 minutes, just maybe top 10 things that happened. Today's Monday, so over the course of the weekend, or things that I find of note. I'm going to start with the fact that Queen Elizabeth has COVID. I'm really sad about it. So for those of you that don't know, I actually lived in England and studied over there for a while. And I know many Americans are like, well, we stopped caring about the British in 1776. And traditionally, I would agree when it comes to our politics. But she is the longest reigning monarch in the country. And I think that's pretty awesome if you look at the past dynasties that have gone through and how not long reigning they have been. And so it's a pretty cool thing that she and her symptoms are mild. I don't think that we can expect anything bad to come out of this, but I thought that it would be important for people to know that she is sick with COVID. The one person in the whole world who's probably the most protected in so many ways, and she has COVID. So just FYI. I wanted to let you guys know, and so all of the articles that I got this information from will be listed in the description, so you can go read in depth, because I'm just really going to go highlights, headlines, not too far in depth on anything. So if you guys want to listen more, you can, or read more. Kamala Harris acknowledged that the world is facing the real possibility of war in Europe and that the United States should incur some cost if Russia decides to invade Ukraine. I found this really interesting because Ukraine is not part of NATO, and I'm not really sure what cost we should incur, according to Kamala Harris. I'm not sure why she thinks the United States is beholden to Ukraine. I've asked this question a lot of my audience. I've asked this question a lot of people who have much bigger brains than I do, other than the concept of Russia starting to go back into a world where they just try to dominate the entire European continent. Sorry. Other than that, and Ukraine is like I guess the tipping point for that to start happening. I don't know that there is a vested interest for us to be worried about that. So I'm hesitant to start talking about U.S. cost to Russia and Ukraine. That was a Business Insider article. An IB Times article. This is very interesting. The Chinese military fired a laser at an Australian surveillance aircraft on the Arafura Sea, I think is how you say the name of the ocean. And the Australian defense minister said that he thinks the Chinese government is hoping that nobody talks about these aggressive bullying tactics. And I'm not a defense minister, I'm not anybody important, but I've never known China to not want people to talk about something, certainly if they're being aggressors. I think that they enjoy the idea that people talk about the fact that they're bullies as a deterrent. It's kind of like rumors, right? So you see this kid in school, or you see this person in the office, and people start whispering and talking about that person, and traditionally people don't like that. I don't think China feels that way. I think China wants the whole world to feel intimidated by them. I could be wrong. Certainly the Australian defense minister may know better. This is interesting, and this is not the first time that it's happened, according to this article. If you think about it and when I say laser, I'm not talking about like what we see in cartoons or in movies or anything like that. This is like, the lasers that you play with cats, but an incredibly high powered one. So it could have blinded the pilots. We could have had a crash, and I think that this is an interesting way of China just poking the bear and saying, hey, we could do bad things to you. So I don't know that they really care when it comes to the idea of whether or not people are talking about them. Okay, I'm only two two subjects in, and I'm already 5 minutes into the episode, so I'm going to try to do better. But FYI, I have not stayed true to my New Year's resolution. I have started drinking energy drinks again, so you'll have to forgive me. I'm sorry. This is what you get first thing in the morning, right? Okay. So Kanye West is fighting with Peppa Pig. I'm not joking. So apparently back in September of last year, Pitchfork did a review of Kanye West's album and an album that came out for Peppa Pig. Peppa Pig's album got rated higher than Kanye West. And I think the way that they said it was that Peppa Pig's album was charming, which we are a Peppa Pig household. And, my daughter grew up, she still to this day calls the yard a garden. So we are a Peppa Pig home. And the same time that Pitchfork's article said Peppa's album was charming, Kanye's was, quote, barely finished and contained a lot of baggage. And this is just kind of a funny, aside. I go from talking about China and lasers to Kanye and Peppa Pig. But apparently, Kanye was not very happy about this and kind of called Peppa Pig out. And Peppa Pig clapped back and said, I didn't have to have watch parties to get people to listen to, or listen parties to get people to listen to my album. So it's been a bit of a feud since September of last year, and I guess it heated up over the weekend. So I think Kanye's ranting about Peppa in his Instagram. So that's unfortunate, because I'm probably going to be Team Peppa if that's what happens. An interesting thing to note, and I thought this was, so don't get me wrong, I understand that El Salvador and the president have some major issues with regards to trafficking and drugs and things like that. But I think the new nationalist president, and I'm going to butcher his name, but Bukele is what I have written down. I don't know if that's how you say it, but he's the El Salvadoran president. And he announced over the weekend that he is sending legal reforms to their Congress, including offering citizenship in exchange for investments, which creates, essentially a haven of freedom, because this is the same president who is planning to launch $1 billion in Bitcoin bonds in March. And that's to raise funds to finance a Bitcoin city project. So this is really interesting. This is also, if you don't know, El Salvador is the first country that is treating cryptocurrency or Bitcoin as legal tender. So as these types of things, you're starting to see a lot more about cryptocurrency. You're starting to see a lot more about NFTs. Even the United States is flirting with the idea of a Fed coin. I think that it's important to note that some of these other developing countries, El Salvador, Panama, Honduras, maybe, don't quote me on that, are starting to look at some decentralized coins as a method of legitimate payment. So it'll be interesting. And don't get me wrong, I'm not one of those crazy crypto people. I think that it's an idea to put some things in, but not necessarily all your eggs in one basket. So that was from Reuters. Another Reuters article that I came across over the weekend. Obviously, if you have not been living under a rock, you know that there is a situation going on right now between Ukraine and Russia. And I just mentioned it a few minutes ago about Kamala Harris. Biden, late in the evening yesterday, has agreed in principle, is the way the article was written, to a summit between himself and Vladimir Putin. This was scheduled after multiple calls between French President Macron, Boris Johnson with the United Kingdom, and then Biden and Putin themselves. Again, Biden has only agreed to this summit, which has no details disclosed as of yet. He's agreed in principle under the premise that Russia has not yet invaded Ukraine. So whether or not that meeting happens, or Russia invades Ukraine first. That is to be determined, but there is a meeting agreed upon at this point. I got an Associated Press article that I thought was worthy of mentioning. It was talking about rental home prices and how they've skyrocketed. So, one of the statistics was in the 50 largest metro areas, the median rent has risen by 19.3% in just a year. And that, coupled with obviously 7.5% year over year inflation, the future squeeze coming from the Fed on interest rates, middle class families are going to be struggling quite a bit right now. So they're feeling the pain. I just think it's important to kind of keep your eyes on some of that. We might start seeing, you hear people talking about like the Great Reset. We might start seeing some urban to rural shifts here in mass, just because of some of the things that are going on. You move rural, you have the ability to grow your own food, network with local farmers, things like that, where you don't have that luxury in urban areas, and prices are just going up and benefits are not. So, moving on, Kentucky. So, a little bit local backyard news here. Filed a couple bills to legalize adult use marijuana sales. And the two bills, so the bills are the SB 186 and HB 521, would establish a cannabis control board and create the Department of Cannabis Control for daily oversight and setting up various one-year licenses. So they're starting to entertain the idea of not only decriminalizing it, but legalizing it and starting to make it a legitimate resource for the state. So that's kind of big coming out of Kentucky because it's a fairly conservative state. Whether or not that moves its way through the Senate and is signed into law by the governor remains to be seen. But that article came from freshtoast.com. And two more stories. Oh, actually, three. I lied, but not on purpose. Disney is building communities around the United States with special neighborhoods within those communities for 55 and over. It's called Story Living. The first location will be called Cotino, and they're going to have multiple neighborhoods for single families, condos, and then, like I said, special neighborhoods for 55 and over. The first community is going to include a 24-acre lagoon and beach area, a hotel, a shopping, dining, and entertainment district. I thought this was really interesting because, we keep talking about live in the pod, eat the bugs. The idea is that if they put everything right there, you never have to go anywhere. And I wonder if this type of, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? I don't know that I want to wake up and see Disney every day in my life, but I have some friends. Jessica, I'm not going to say your last name, but I would imagine you will be living in one of these communities. And Caitlin, with the amount that you guys love Disney. So I don't know. We'll see how that shakes out. Elon Musk donated $5.7 billion in Tesla stock in November. This was just disclosed over the course of the last week. It was to charity, according to a recent disclosure, but the beneficiary of the donation is unknown. And there are some laws that govern charitable donations, but wealthier donors can actually keep that anonymous and secret, and it's legal for them to do so. There's speculation that because the donation coincides with the estimate by the UN World Fund Program that $6 billion would save world hunger, or solve world hunger. Can't read my own handwriting. The money could, as has been in the past, be placed in a donor advised fund, or it's called a DAF, where it can sit in perpetuity. Should the wealthy be required to disclose their charitable donations? Should anyone be required to do that? That's up for debate. There are a lot of people who think If you're donating that kind of money, you should have to say where it's going. I think you're a private individual and your privacy should remain private. And that's just my personal opinion, but I think that this is something silly to be up in arms about. The man does a lot of great work, but he's a private citizen. And unless you want the government all up in your business, I don't think it's right for you to be advocating for it to be in someone else's. The last thing that I wanted to touch on, and this came to me first thing this morning, there is also, if you have been living under a rock, you may not know this, but there's a trucker protest going on in Canada right now, and there is a class action lawsuit against the truckers. And it's kind of interesting because on Monday of last week, a Superior Court justice granted a temporary 10-day injunction which banned the horn honking and air blowing that had been sounding through downtown Ottawa. And it's a court case that's being brought as a class action lawsuit in the amount of, hold on, let me scroll here, $9.8 million. But the person who's bringing it is actually a Chinese national. Her name is Zexi Li. And it's a really interesting case. She said there's a peaceful way to protest. This is not it. The basis for the lawsuit is that it is, they have a right to peace. And I thought this was really interesting. This is a very, a dynamic lawsuit that brings into question the right to protest versus the right to peace in your own home. Excuse me. So that's it for everything yesterday this morning. I will be back tomorrow morning with your top 10 news articles from today that I think are noteworthy that you need to pay attention to. I appreciate you guys very much. You are welcome to join us. You can follow me on Twitter at Shouse34, or you can join Patreon and get some exclusive content there, exclusive access. I look forward to getting to know all of you and seeing you every morning. And I hope you guys have an absolutely spectacular day.